President Donald Trump continued appointment palooza with some of the biggest stars in his cabinet to date. One of them is a literal TV star. Pete Hegseth from Fox News was appointed Secretary of Defense. I will say this, Donald Trump has done something that no other president in my memory has ever done, and that is made presidential cabinet appointments entertaining. What used to just be a mundane task, a mundane exercise in the democratic process where the president goes in with his transition team and picks bureaucrats and Washington elitists and people who've been serving in the Congress or the Senate for what seems like forever and elevates them to positions of power, people who donated to somebody's campaign. And now we're looking for their investment, their return on investment, if you will, with some kind of cabinet position or ambassadorship. That's not the case. Donald Trump has turned presidential appointments into must-see TV, or, since TV is basically dead, must-see internet viewing. And the selection of Pete Hegseth from Fox News as Secretary of Defense is one of the most entertaining and one of the best choices President Trump has made so far. In his statement, Donald Trump said, "I am pleased to announce that I have nominated Pete Hegseth to serve in my cabinet as the Secretary of Defense." Pete has spent his entire life as a warrior for the troops and for the country. Pete is tough, smart, and a true believer in America first. With Pete at the helm, America's enemies are on notice. Our military will be great again, and America will never back down. Now, a lot of people have discounted this choice by President Trump. They've scratched their head and they said, wait a minute. A Fox News host who hangs out on the couch on the weekends on Fox and Friends is going to be in charge of the most powerful fighting force, the most powerful military. This is the person that Donald Trump chose to lead the Pentagon. Well, yes. And the reason is because he's more than just a pretty face on Fox TV or on Fox News. He's also a graduate of Princeton University. He has a graduate degree from Harvard University. He's an Army combat veteran. He did 2 tours in Guantanamo Bay, in Iraq and Afghanistan. He received the Bronze Star twice, as well as the Combat Infantryman's Badge. He's been hosting on Fox News for 8 years, but he's used the platform to benefit the military and to speak out for military and veteran reforms. Pete's book, The War on Warriors, spent 9 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, 2 weeks at #1, and it is all about the left-wing betrayal of our brave and valiant warriors and how the military of all government institutions must be a meritocracy. They must return to a military of meritocracy, lethality, accountability, and excellence. Pete has also led 2 veterans advocacy organizations, leading the fight for our warriors and our veterans. Nobody fights harder for the troops, and Pete will be a courageous and patriotic champion of all fighting men and women. And that seems to be, from those people that know him, that seems to be the resounding message, that Pete Hegseth isn't just a Fox News host. He is an accomplished warrior. He is a war hero, and he's somebody who really understands what the military needs, and that is a de-wokeification, if you will, of the American military. All of the woke policies and all of the problems that we've seen with recruitment can all boil down to weak leadership, being too concentrated or concerned with DEI practices, and making sure that there's a sense of, overwhelming political correctness in the military. And when you're trying to train the most lethal fighting force on the planet, when you're facing deadly enemies like China, a nuclear power, Russia, a nuclear power, Iran, soon to be a nuclear power thanks to Joe Biden, and North Korea, also a nuclear power. When you're facing these threats on a daily basis, you need men and women who are trained with one task and one task only, and that is to fight and win wars. And Pete Hegseth recently sat down on a podcast where he basically outlined exactly what his plan would be if he were Secretary of Defense. And now, just weeks later, he has the position.
Well, first of all, you got to fire, you got to fire the chairman of Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. Obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke, it's got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. And that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, I don't know, 1995. Let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve.
I'm excited to see those ads. I'm excited to see those ads for sure. I imagine Jerry Bruckheimer will be waiting for his call from Pete Hegseth to do those recruitment ads. But that is something that is, it's very truthful and it's very accurate. And back in the days of Top Gun, the first one, we had military recruitment at its highest. The day after Top Gun was released, two things happened. Ray-Ban sunglasses saw their highest sales ever, and the Navy saw its largest recruiting numbers ever. And in the last 4 years, those numbers have plummeted. They've declined. And when you have lower military enlistment, that is a national security problem. And over the last 4 years, since Joe Biden became commander-in-chief, the military recruitment has been at one of its lowest points in history. So we look forward to Pete Hegseth coming back and fixing all of that. And it seems like it's a solid, youthful, and intelligent choice by a no-nonsense military leader whose sole task is to extricate all of the woke BS, as he said, from the military and bring it back to its glory and recreating the most lethal fighting force on the planet. So congratulations to Pete Hegseth and congratulations to President Trump on making what is a quizzical for some people choice, but in the end will be a fantastic one for the United States of America. Another choice that President Trump made yesterday and released in a statement was the actual, I guess you would say, a culmination of an idea that we've heard about on the campaign trail for months now, and that is bringing Elon Musk in with the help of Vivek Ramaswamy, two of the superstars of the Trump campaign. Both of these gentlemen appeared at multiple rallies. They appeared at multiple events. They interviewed Donald Trump on the campaign trail. They were interviewed themselves. They created some of the most viral and exciting moments of the presidential campaign in 2024. And now they've been rewarded with the task of bringing down the oversized and overinflated cost of government. Government spending is out of control. The size of the government is under control. And Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will fix that. President Donald Trump, in a statement yesterday, said, "I am pleased to announce that the great Elon Musk, working in conjunction with American patriot Vivek Ramaswamy, will lead the Department of Government Efficiency," or as Elon Musk calls it, Doge. He even has a little mascot created for it. Together, these two wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies essential to the Save America movement. This will send shockwaves through the system and anyone involved in government waste, which is a lot of people, stated Mr. Musk. Now, this is an interesting case study as well, because Elon Musk, for those of you that may or may not know, when he purchased Twitter, the first thing he did was exactly this. He purged 2/3 of Twitter's staff. He cut the waste and said, we're spending way too much money on way too many people. They're getting way too much pay and they're doing way too little work. And when you cut out the inefficiency, you do two things automatically. You save money and you make those people who are left, who remain, the agencies that remain, the workers who remain, more valuable, and you give them more opportunity to succeed. And then, of course, you can take that saved money and invest it in other growth projects. Well, the United States government is the largest employer in the country, and that's something that's got to stop. So Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have been tasked as a team to do just that. And it's an interesting pairing for a couple of reasons. Number one, as we pointed out, Elon Musk, he's a huge streamlining individual. He runs some of the most successful companies in the world. He's the world's richest man because of Tesla, because of Starlink, because of the Boring Company, because of all of his other projects he's invested in, and now X. He has set himself up as somebody who can look at a company, cut out all the waste, streamline it, and run it efficiently. Vivek Ramaswamy the same way. But because Elon Musk is still running all of those businesses on a daily basis, linking him with Vivek Ramaswamy, a very smart choice by President Donald Trump. It gives Elon's vision and Vivek's day-to-day resilience, and it combines them together to make our government truly great again. President Trump went on to say, this will potentially become, quote, the Manhattan Project of our time. And you know, the Manhattan Project was the project where Fat Man and Little Boy, the two nuclear weapons that were dropped in Japan on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and changed the course of the world, not just the course of the world militarily, but the balance of power and the destructive capabilities that set off the Cold War, and that really brought about American dominance in the world. President Trump believes that by cutting down now the size of our government and reducing our spending, that will have the same effect, and America will return to that strong part of dominance, at least economically. Republican politicians have dreamed about the objectives of DOGE for a very long time. To drive this kind of drastic change, the Department of Government Efficiency will provide advice and guidance from outside of government and will partner with the White House and Office of Management and Budget to drive large-scale structural reform and create an entrepreneurial approach to government never seen before. And that's the key, the entrepreneurial approach to government that we've never seen before. Government has never been run like a startup, and these two guys know about startup companies, and they're going to run the government as if it's a startup and make it much more successful. The really interesting thing about Donald Trump's announcement is that he also gave them a deadline. Their work will conclude no later than July 4th, 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence of our country. On our 250th birthday, Donald Trump wants this project completed. A smaller government with more efficiency and less bureaucracy will be the perfect gift to America on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. I am confident they will succeed. Vivek Ramaswamy simply tweeted out, "Shut it down," in all caps. So I believe he's not only up to the task, but very, very excited about it. As I said before, there were a ton. Yesterday was probably one of the busiest days in the Trump transition team that we've seen. And of course, one of the most entertaining. President Trump also chose Kristi Noem, which we teased in yesterday's program, but it became official that Governor Noem will be the Homeland Security Secretary. Trump picks Kristi Noem for Homeland Security Secretary. The governor of South Dakota would play a major role in carrying out the president-elect's promises to crack down on the border and deport millions of people. As we know, President Trump has made the border crisis, shutting down the border, the mass deportation, and then, of course, drilling for more oil and making America energy independent again. He has made those his primary functions. The very first appointment after Susie Wiles as chief of staff was to Tom Homan, the border czar. After that, we've seen other appointments with strong immigration policies. For example, Stephen Miller returning as deputy chief of staff for immigration and domestic policy. And now, if you throw Kristi Noem in the mix, you've got another hardline conservative who is going to work diligently to make sure that this effort continues, and also somebody who's going to be on the same page as the president, not falter from the plan, not alter the plan, and more or less just execute the plan so that America can become safe again. There's another another major pick, and that was John Ratcliffe as CIA director. Trump picked ex-national intelligence honcho John Ratcliffe for CIA director, and that was a little bit of a surprise as we had heard other names popping out of the campaign. But again, unless you hear about it from President Trump or Caroline Leavitt or some kind of official Trump spokesperson, unless you hear about it from me on this podcast, which you should be listening to every single day, it's not official. Well, now it is. John Ratcliffe will be the CIA director. And for those of you unfamiliar with John Ratcliffe, he's a congressman. He's from Texas. He was a staunch Trump supporter. In fact, he was one of Donald Trump's defenders during his first impeachment. He got up on the impeachment team and he defended Donald Trump against the bogus impeachment charges in the impeachment 1.0. He called it thin. He called it weak. He called it a ploy and a plot by the Democrats to just punish one of their political adversaries. When the COVID hit, he was actually in charge of the intelligence community as he was the director of national intelligence. And what happened was John Ratcliffe was one of the few intelligence officers who came out against the 50 so-called former intelligence agency chiefs and experts who claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. You may remember that it was 51 intelligence officials. They lied about Hunter Biden's laptop. They came out publicly. They wrote a letter. It was published everywhere that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. And John Ratcliffe was one of the very few who came out and said, no, there is no evidence to support this. These people are inaccurate. And of course, the reason they were lying about it was to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office in 2020 and keep Joe Biden from any kind of severe political retribution as a result. So John Ratcliffe fought for Donald Trump in the impeachment. He fought for Donald Trump in the election. He fought against the propaganda and the lies from the left about the Russian disinformation campaign regarding Hunter Biden's laptop. And now he has been rewarded and elevated to CIA director, which should make everybody else at the CIA very, very scared, because this continues Donald Trump's purging of the deep state operatives who have been in charge of not only our intelligence agencies, but our military, our DOJ, our IRS, pretty much every branch of the government. Donald Trump is hiring people, putting them in a position of power. He knows exactly who they are, what they believe, what they're capable of, and what they plan to do, and then he's going to let them do it. And that's how you purge out the deep state, secure the border, become energy and economically independent, and make America great again. There's something else that leaked yesterday, too, which the Wall Street Journal reported. I don't know if it was leaked or if it was potentially shared, but the Wall Street Journal had a story that went super viral about a draft executive order. You know, not only the transition team's working on not just the people to put in place, but the plan for the first 100 days of President Trump's second term. And in the first one, before you have the first 100 days, you have the first day. And on the first day, there's a lot of stuff you want to get done. On day one, you want to have a list, a whole dozens and dozens of executive orders ready to go, so that as soon as President Trump takes his hand off the Bible, he can hightail it back to the Oval Office and start signing all of these executive orders to close the border, to reinstate stay in Mexico, to do all of these wonderful things that's been promised and that the American people voted for. Well, one of these things is a draft executive order that is set to put forth what they call a warrior board. The Wall Street Journal writes, the Trump transition team is considering a draft executive order that establishes a, quote, warrior board of retired senior military personnel with the power to review 3- and 4-star officers and to recommend removals of any deemed unfit for leadership. This is a committee of military personnel, of retired military personnel, who can look at current military personnel and decide whether or not they've been derelict in their duty, they've strayed from the path of the goal of the military, and whether or not they are still fit for service. And this is something, again, that Donald Trump has had concerns with, especially at the upper echelons and the top tiers of the military, where some of these 5-star generals could become corrupted by power. If Donald Trump approves the order, it could fast track the removal of generals and admirals found to be lacking in requisite leadership qualities, according to a draft of the order reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. But it could also create a chilling effect on top military officers, given the president-elect's past vow to fire woke generals, referring to officers seen as promoting diversity in the ranks at the expense of military readiness. That sentence right there should let everybody know that there is a serious crisis in our military. If you have woke generals who are promoting diversity in the ranks at the expense of military readiness, then I believe that the military readiness supersedes any woke principles or DEI philosophies, and that those woke generals truly are not fit for service, seeing as how the service they should be executing, or the service they should be providing, is to the best of their ability, training our sons and daughters to go out into military situations, fight them, win them with as little loss of life as possible on either side. And that is something that I think is exciting. And I would love for that potential draft order to become an order. And it's something that we'll be following up on. Listen, there was one more high profile cabinet position, and that was the choice of former Arkansas governor Mike Huckabee to be the American ambassador to Israel. The Israeli ambassador is one of the most important positions, as Israel is our number one ally anywhere in the world, and especially in the Middle East. And you may remember how Donald Trump brought peace to the Middle East in his first term. He moved the He moved the embassy back to Jerusalem. They built a little square garden to President Trump right in front of it. He became a hero. He should have been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize several times over. He should have won it. He did not. And I know that one of his goals, is to return his legacy, which was peace in the Middle East between Israel and their neighbors in the surrounding territories. So the ambassador to Israel is a very important position in a Donald Trump cabinet, and it was given to a very highly qualified guy, former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. He ran for president as well, and he's been a mainstay in Republican politics, but he's also much beloved by Jewish organizations, the Jewish people, and the Israeli government. So another high-profile, very important, and very intelligent choice from the Trump transition team. Now, the only other news we have to report today is that later on, President Trump will be hosted by Joe Biden in the Oval Office. This is the traditional meeting before the peaceful transfer of power between past presidents. The current president and the future president meet for a luncheon, a discussion, a photo opportunity. The last time this meeting occurred was in 2016 when incoming President Trump, met with outgoing President Barack Obama. For several reasons, this meeting did not happen in 2020. So this will be the first meeting of the sort between Joe Biden and Donald Trump.